today I'm going to be doing a do-it-yourself front splitter. Basically grabbed the idea of how I'm doing this off of John from Garage Built Hondas. If you have not watched his tutorial, it's pretty much spot on. I think he's got 2 of them now. If you have seen his, I'm going to have some differences. I'm not going to put an air dam on mine. I may later on, so we'll set it up for the future availability of doing that. But so what I'm going to be doing is kind of something similar. I'm going to be using just a piece of plywood. It's 1/2 inch thick. I cut it down to 2 feet by 8 feet. I got some junky little cheap paint roller kit here, some fiberglass resin, and the resin's going to be for pouring it on top. After I've got my shape, I'm going to pour that all over it. Thin layer, that way it'll kind of just make it a little more solid and a little water resistance in case I catch it in some drizzling rain or just the ground is wet, whatever the case. And it'll also help get rid of the grain structure. It'll have the grain of the wood, but I'll be able to paint over the fiberglass and it won't look like it's made out of wood. Just something I want to do. These you can get all over eBay. They are made for EG Civics and DC Integras. So they don't exactly fit up to our chassis. These should in theory bolt up to where the factory tow hooks are. Mine will not bolt there due to the traction bar and everything else. So I'm going to bolting it similar to how John did his. Came with some little M8 screws that basically go through here. And we'll be using nut certs to attach it to the car. So let's get started and just kind of figure out how and where we're going to mount this. All right, so here's the bracket. I'm going to be kind of coming up right about here. I'm not going to butt this right against, but I'm going to try to, maybe space it off about 1/2 inch or so. Now the problem is, the back of this nut is catching up on here. And I know already I'm going to have to go higher up. And I say that because the bottom attached here, which is where the actual, lip is going to sit, I can already see, I don't know if you can or not either, but basically the bottom here is hanging exponentially lower than the front lip. So this whole thing needs to go up. So I'm just going to remove these back lock nuts just for the moment to figure out how we can do this. So if you were going to run an air dam or something similar to what John did, you'd probably be all right doing this, obviously, because this gap that exists is not a big deal because the air dam's going to cover it. But I want this front splitter basically to come up to my bottom of my lip here. So let's also back the, now you've got this bolt head coming through a good chunk. So this piece here, this welded on nut is also, it's just a welded on nut, so it's threaded there too. So the lock nut was just kind of a secondary precaution for it not to back out. So they're flush. If I was to pick this up, alright. So the other issue of picking it all the way up, which it gets close, now I'm rubbing right here. I don't know if you can see that. Right where this area here bends, I'm running right into the frame there. So if I wanted to go any higher, I kind of can't. And this is pretty close to being level, but it looks like it still would have a gap. And again, I'd like to have as much adjustability up or down. So I'm just going to kind of mark here and just take an angle grinder and just kind of shrink this down a bit here. All right, so it was hitting here about-ish. You probably can't see with the light in the camera, but I drew a Sharpie line just kind of roughly where it was. So I'm just going to take a flap disc and just sort of sand it down there. Alright, so this piece of aluminum here is just going to simulate my, basically my splitter for the time being. I just kind of drilled a front and a back hole. And I'm just going to bolt this up roughly so I can kind of just see if I'm going to be able to, or where I need to drill my bracket itself. So this will just kind of simulate it and I'll be able to put this up underneath and move the actual bracket up or down to get a good drill spot. Alright, so you can kind of see the jack is there. I know it's a little bit of an angle right now, but if I push up in the back, it'll kind of flatten itself out. But you get the idea of what I'm doing. So right now it's inside here. I'm just kind of looking at where I can space this from the actual edge there. And just kind of going to mark up some holes there. Now I've already got a hole in the body. Maybe that'll come through there. I'm going to just kind of draw some lines in there. Get it evenly spaced. And I know it'll always be able to go lower if it's this high. So what I'd probably end up doing is I'm probably going to give this a little more of a jack. Or actually I'll probably just leave it there. That way it's not fully maxed out and I'll be able to push up a little bit. Alright, so the biggest downfall what I'm doing is these nuts here. Because I can't get this totally laying flat right here. I mean, you could if you're right here. Because of where I'm putting it, this nut here comes out on the back. So it's gonna cause basically this to kind of have a little bit of a tilt like that. Okay, so here's what it looks like right now. Again, this is my just like template piece of whatever there. And as of right now, I've just got some generic, some nuts back there acting as a spacer, just for temporary here. I will stop by Ace. This is just again to get the wood going. Let's put the bumper on and let's see where she stands. All right, so here's what it looks like. It's kind of on 2 jack stands right now. It's not bolted up or anything. I kind of just got it to be a little flush there. And on the other side, and you might be able to see it, but I can't pick it up because you see where my header wrap is kind of falling off on the downpipe. Need to kind of redo that a little bit down there. It's been like that for a hot minute, but so right there, you kind of just trim that out a little bit. That way I can kind of push this in a little bit more and up. So I'm just gonna kind of even this out a little bit, trim out the center where the downpipe sits, and we'll go. All right, it is absolutely not detached now, but I kind of just welded these 2 pieces together. I'm gonna run some more beads on the back side, but now this plate is actually sitting flush. I took the nut off on the back side that was over here. It is absolutely not detached now. The only way to remove it would be to take the bumper off and unbolt it from here, or just leave this bracket on there, which you probably still could, and just come up in here and undo these. So maybe I'll figure something else to put these underneath or whatever the case is, but here's the other side now, what it looks like. So I need to raise this up a little bit higher, but I can't because then this quick detach pin runs into the frame rail there and I could cut that. I don't want to. And again, with that nut I showed earlier is resting against the back of here now, which then pushes this. You can see my fingers behind here. I don't like that. So if I remove the back nut, I can push this flat up against here, but then I'm basically eliminating the quick detach system. So this may have been a waste of money on my part. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to use it or not. And it looks like I can't exactly the way that I'm trying to do it. So I'm making what I have now work. All right, so here's the template one that I kind of just cut out. If you follow my Instagram, it's the one that I post pictures of, and I don't hate it. I ended up shrinking it down a bit, and I like the look of it. The only downfall is I didn't take that much time on prep. As you can see, there's all kinds of like gashes and stuff in it. Just trying to cover the actual wood grain here. So I'm going to, with this now, I'm just going to throw it over here, trace it, drill the holes in it, and then essentially lightly sand this and then pour some fiberglass resin over it. The other thing I didn't like about this too was the clear coat I used was just a gloss clear, and it doesn't match anything on the car except for maybe the wheels. So I got this matte clear that I'm hoping is going to be slightly satin, and we'll see how that comes out. So now again, just going to mark all the holes, drill everything, blah, 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 and we'll move on. So I sand it down now with 220. This is just some fiberglass resin and some hardener. So I'm just gonna gently wipe a nice thin coat all over this. I know it's probably gonna get in the holes. That's fine with me. I'll just kind of drill them out again. But pretty self-explanatory now. A little bit here to go on a little thin. It's better to be a little light coat than heavy coat. So I kind of just poured it on there. Ooh, little wind's got it. So again, I'm going to try to even this out as much as possible. That way there's not as much, hopefully not as much sanding required here. And I do have some filler primer just to like aid in some of it, but I kind of want this to be, doesn't need to be thick. All right, so the second one, there's no fiberglass on it. And I just kind of sprayed it with this Filler Fills Deep Scratches primer from Duplicolor. I just chose this color because that's all they had. So now what I'm going to use is this, it's like 23 bucks at O'Reilly's. This Duplicolor paint shop, just jet black. So I sprayed this with about 3 good coats, sanded it with some 220 so it's nice and smooth now. Now let's just simply, let's spray it on. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of rushing now because it's sort of getting a little dark here, but I'd like to get the matte clear on tonight. But so this is the first coat. I finally went to it just covered. My only complaint with that paint is it's kind of thin in comparison to other paint that I've sprayed. And I'm not obviously a painter. If you've been watching on my channel, this is, you know, I don't know. I've been painting a lot of stuff for local people kind of now, but this is just a lot thinner than anything else I've already sprayed. So I felt I could put a good heavier coat on there because its heavy coat felt like it was equivalent of just a light coat. So I got full coverage on the first coat. I kept spraying until I got that. I'm gonna give this another like 5 or 10 minutes to cure, and then I'm gonna spray it a second time and then let it sit for about 30 minutes before I throw the clear on it. All right, so that video was all over the place. I was trying to do a lot of things. The weather got really bad. I was preparing to go to the track and other things, but so here it is, what I did not show you, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So what I also did is I drilled some holes and I just put some riv nuts here and here. Now these, I'll be honest with you, they're kind of tight, but they're just really superficial. I ended up putting a riv nut there in the top of the bumper, which I know is not what you're supposed to do. But really this is not being held up by the bumper. These are just really purely aesthetic in my situation. And I felt like if I had to remove these, I could easily just remove that riv nut from up there and then cap it, and you'd never even know it was there. What I ended up doing down here is the same thing. You can see I didn't paint down here, but you can see the bolt there, and there's 3 of them down there. I need to actually replace these for more of a flat kind of domed head like so. And what those are, I ended up riv nutting inside the bracket that I welded, so that way all I gotta do is just come down here and release those 3 bolts on both sides and it'll release itself. And all I did for the shape was I basically just grabbed this extension, might not have been this exact one, but this extension, and I just stuck a sharp at the end of it and just followed it all the way around, which made it easier to, you know, jigsaw it out. And it was really long over here. It stuck out more than the tire, which kind of bothered me. So I ended up just kind of trimming it manually and making my own shape on the sides there. But overall it came out. So I did do the base, the matte clear, and then what you see there is just Plastidip. I ended up just throwing some, maybe like 6 or 7 coats of Plastidip out of an aerosol can over it, just for durability's sake. Being where it's at, it's gonna get hit, it's gonna get beat up, I know that. And I've got another one in case I need to change it. It is what it is, they're not very expensive. But that's it really in a nutshell. So sorry this video was kind of all over the place. Again, I was trying to rush and do some things and stuff did not go exactly as planned. And then I jumped onto something else, and then I bought the S2000 in the process. It was a whole disaster, but I figured this is better than nothing, and someone can get an idea or see what did or did not work in my case. Other than that, stay tuned. I have probably 2 other videos that I just kind of filmed. Suspensions on the S2000 and a soft top is on the S2000. Those videos should come out, and I have a bunch of video from the track day, which ended up being great, but I'm not gonna say anything about that now until that video comes out. So again, leave any comments, questions, whatever you want in the comments below. I appreciate everybody for watching. Stay tuned for more.